Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, guys. We had decided quite a while back, I think Brother Fareed was still on board at the time, to kind of write or record our own stories. And I recall he made an attempt at that. And, well, some people had criticism on the video because it was too, I think he over summarized it. So I guess I'm going to be person number two to record my story on how I got to know about Shiaism, how I got involved in this, because as you know, Sunnis online who refute Shia, even though Sunnis are about you're talking about 1.6 billion, 1.5 billion, almost none of these people are interested in Shiaism or refuting Shiaism. Shiaism is simply something that never mattered to Sunnis. And throughout history, Shia themselves were kind of a secretive society, just living in their own communities. So nobody really cared about Shia. The only reason people now talk about Shia more is because of media, websites, internet, and the whole political situation, which is volatile in the Middle East. Sectarian strife, Iran-Saudi wars, all of that stuff. So, how is it that a Sunni got to know about Shia? So I'll just give some brief information, then some background information about myself. This video is not like a vital refutation of Shiaism or anything like that. It's just a story for fun, so enjoy. So I was, again, a lot of you may not even know who I am. I don't really like to introduce myself. I don't like writing my name. Or announcing my name even in these videos. Just FYI, our channel does not monetize. We don't make any money out of it. We pay out of our pockets. No Saudi petrodollars like the Shia YouTube commentators tell you. And we're not after fame or anything really. We're just making content that nobody else has made before, which serves a really clear purpose, which is, I believe, a beneficial purpose to educate the Muslims, to educate even the non-Muslims about the sect of Shiaism. And then you decide you want to join them, you don't want to join them, it's up to you. Anywho, so I was born in Lebanon. I'm Lebanese. Am I purely Lebanese? I actually did the DNA tests not too long ago. I think it was maybe last year or the year before. I did one of those DNA tests. So it was just for fun. And I think I was like 38% Arab, which is not surprising for somebody who's from the Mediterranean, that region, the Levant, Sham in Arabic, English, it's called Levant, which is Syria, Palestine, Jordan, and Lebanon. A predominantly Sunni stronghold, actually, with minority Shias. So I was 38% Arab, maybe like 24% Greek, and a whole bunch of other things like Babylonian and whatever. My grandfather was a Catholic Christian. He's a Maronite. So Maronites are kind of like the Eastern version of PayPal Christianity, where the Pope basically patriarchal, not PayPal, not the money funds engine or whatever. So they are an Eastern version of Christianity, just like the Copts. They have their cardinals. They have high-ranking cardinals in Lebanon, and they have quite a status. And so my grandfather was well linked to some of the top Christian figures in Lebanon at the time. Later on, he wanted to marry my grandmother. We fell in love and all of that. And she was a Muslim, except she's Shia. And she was young at the time, and so he married. I think she was maybe 12 or 14 when he married her. And he's a Christian, mind you, so don't give me that whole Muslim pedophilia business. That was the state of affairs just about 80 years ago, let alone if we're talking 800, 900. That was the norm. There's nothing special about it. It wasn't in the news. It wasn't in the newspapers. Nobody cared. It was just culture. So he converted to Islam. I think just by name, wallahu alam. I never really asked him because when I was a kid, he died early. I wasn't, I was a kid. I didn't care. Um, but I know for a fact that he stopped practicing any form of Christianity. And he believed in God. So therefore, I say Muslim at this point. From my dad's side, my dad my dad was secular, almost atheistic at times. When he would get angry, he would even insult God. So it was a very secular upbringing kind of for me. At least no emphasis on religion. There's no propaganda. There's no. My parents weren't trying to. My dad specifically, because my mom, she wasn't religious, but things later changed. So from his side, he was Tamimi. Some say Hassani. There's good evidence that he's Hassani, but most I would lean towards Tamimi. My mother's side is a very famous Musawi family. Musawis, if you don't know, or anybody who's descendant from Musa, call them. So, but it's a very well established Musawi family. So they're Husseini, and they have one of the best lineages, and we have the family tree. In terms of Hashemite lineages, they have one of the best lineages. So as far as my dad being atheistic or anything along those lines or secular, it's just that is how Lebanon is. Lebanon is not known to be a religious country. In fact, if you go to your local masjid, if you're living in America or the UK or Australia, you won't find that many Lebanese. Lebanese tend to integrate really well with mostly with Christians and non-Muslims, and so you wouldn't find that many Lebanese who are practicing Muslims, let alone religious or anything along those lines. And so, so that's just normal, and they do insult. So Lebanon is sectarian in a special way. For example, you're walking in the street, somebody gets angry, you'll hear them curse God or insult God or something. This is common. They're like, this is really common in Lebanon. However, they're sectarian. So you can hear a Christian curse God, but you'll never hear him curse specifically Jesus. You can hear a Sunni curse God, but you'll never hear a Sunni curse Muhammad. You can hear a Shia curse God, but you'll never hear a Shia curse Ali. What does that mean? It means that those thugs, those hooligans in the street are not necessarily religious, but they're sectarian. And therefore, that's where the sectarian strife comes from, the sectarian conflict in Lebanon. Lebanon is about, you can say about 30% Sunni, 30% Shia, 20, maybe 5% Christian, and then the Druze and whatever leftovers. I grew up on pan-Arabism, Arabic unity, the Arab dream of unifying and expelling. My dad was more of a Nasserist. I became more of a Nasserist at that point, which is a proponent of the Egyptian president, Gamal Abdel Nasser. Continuing his movement, continuing his struggle. In the same way, a lot of, Latin Americans maybe are interested in Che Guevara. We had our Abdel Nasser, and they were, I think, allies. So I got into a lot of political activism. There was social media, so I mingled with a lot of the, as you know, a lot of the political activists are Christians or atheists or whatever, who are pro-Palestine. And the entire cause that we struggled for was Palestine. And so you got introduced into a whole array of beliefs. Some are Buddhist, some are what doesn't matter, but they're all pro-Palestine. They're all anti, Zionism and whatever. That made me open to a lot of people. So I was more tolerant. I was more accepting. Lebanon, more or less, was a westernized country, unlike a lot of the other Arab countries, or even Muslim countries. It was very westernized. So we were kind of open. We were kind of accepting of all, and our diversity in Lebanon, would help. There would be a lot of intermarriages between all sects. It's not like even the Christians in Lebanon, even though maybe Maronites are majority, but you have a bunch of sects of Christianity from Roman, Greek, and whatever, Orthodox, all that stuff, Protestants. Anywho, so. After a couple of years in activism, I realized something. I realized that Arabism and those who push for Arabism, it's all about slogans. It's all lies. That the leadership is all being financed and bought by certain regimes, certain Arab regimes, like Nasserists were being at one point funded by Egypt, and then Libyans started funding them, and some of these pan Arabs and are funded by the Syrian regime, so Baathists, or sometimes Iraqi Baathists, sometimes Syrian Baathists. So it was all lies. They were all, they would trick youth. They would get a whole bunch of youth who are sincere and really wanting to achieve justice and liberate, all the occupied lands and all of that. But I realized it was all lies. And so the alternative for me, just like the Palestinian people, when they saw the PLO sell the cause, or, so they say, they turned towards what? They turned towards a religious alternative. I turned towards a religious alternative myself. And I was more secular, and I started being more interested in religion at that point. I still carried a lot of my ideas from my Pan-Arab days, even as a religious person. So Pan-Arabism, our view was, as far as Sunni-Shias, it was about Sunni-Shia unity. That was the official stance of anybody, who's pro, Arab unity and wanting to unite the Ummah and all of that. Sunni-Shia unity. Unless you were maybe Ba'athist, and after the Iraqi thing, that changed for a lot of people. They became anti-Shia because they would associate Shiism with Iran, and Iran is Persian, not Arab. So there was that whole racial and distinction. And we believed, and the Shia were a part of obviously the activist movement, just like everybody else was. And everybody there adopted kind of a more or less some similar ideas. Shiism, especially Shiism, would propagate that whatever evil thing happens in the Arab world, it is caused by Wahhabism, Zionism, and imperialism. So therefore, anything that would happen, we would blame it on Wahhabism, Zionism, imperialism. So that was kind of like a brainwashing of some sort. We were brainwashed to believe that anything that ever happens, which is bad, is caused by these three, or a combination. One of them or a combination of all three of them. And therefore, we lost the ability to critically analyze anything. We wouldn't critically analyze any of the news. We wouldn't critically analyze any event. Anything that happens, we just sit back, relax, and say, Zionists did it. It's the Zionists. They're the ones who are behind all the terrible things. And we're not saying, obviously we're not here saying that Zionists are good, but we're saying that that's not how real life works, and that's not how politics works. Politics is interests, and when you get into politics, realize that all of the parties are guilty. All of the parties are guilty. So Iran is not innocent. Russia is not innocent. China is not innocent, and you see that happening now. You see, Iran slaughtering tons of Muslims in Syria and in Iraq, and even in Yemen, they're backing these Houthis, and they've pretty much killed more Muslims at this point than Israel, since the inception of Israel until now. Russia killed millions, in Asia, Central Asia, and South Asia. China, look at what they're doing to the Uyghurs now. The Uyghurs, I don't know if you've heard of them, but they're being, concentration camps, they're being executed. It's horrible. So no, not everything apparently was due to Wahhabism, Zionism, and imperialism. It was also the other side was equally guilty. No, so when I was still in this phase, we were all online. We'd see these Salafis, or these, some more of the conservative Sunnis with the beards. They would sometimes say things like, oh, Shia believes in tahrif and stuff like that. And I had Shia friends. And I was like, when I would hear that these Salafis or these whatever, whoever they are, Deobandis, Salafis, Hanafis, whatever, they would lose all credibility in my eyes, because I'm like, I know Shia, they're Muslims. There's no way in hell. How could a Muslim believe in tahrif? How could a Muslim believe that the Muslim holy book is corrupted? That is clearly, that is a ridiculous claim. That's how it appeared to me as a layperson. And Sunnis, we were brought up, thinking well of others. So we never really investigate these things. We just dismiss them. And And yeah, you're basically pro resistance, whether that resistance is a communist resistance, like the Lebanese Communist Party, or a Shi'i resistance, or a Christian resistance, just like I think the PFLP was led by who? George Habash. It was a Christian, Palestinian Christian, resisting occupation, or Sunni, or whatever, form of resistance movement. At one point during my interaction with my Shia friends, and I had a few Shia friends. I think one friend of mine, his last name was Zaiter. I think it's a famous Lebanese Southern Shia family, possibly Zaiter, and he had some terminal illness, and I used to respect him a lot, and we used to get along. He introduced once the text of Ghadir Qum to me, and I didn't know much about. My Arabic was very weak, and there's something you should know about Lebanese. We have really weak Arabic. There's a concentration on French, and now there's a concentration on English nowadays. But our Arabic is terrible. So when he introduced Ghadir to me not knowing, simply just not knowing what the word Mawla meant for Arabs, I was about to convert to Shiaism at that point. I'm like, oh, I didn't know, because I was curious, like, well, why are you people Shia? Why aren't you Sunni? What's the point? And so he showed me Ghadir, and I'm like, wow, oh, well, that makes sense. Maybe I should consider Tashayya. And that piqued some interest. So I started watching some of the Sunni-Shia debates on TV. I was in Dubai at the time, and I think it was Al-Mustaqillah. There was none of those other TV channels were on. The Shia at that point, I think, had a lot of TV channel propagating Shiaism. Sunnis, there was only one channel called Al-Mustaqillah, which is ran by some Tunisian guy, or Hashimi. He's from Ahl al-Bayt, and he would organize these debates between Sunni and Shia scholars. So I saw the argument of Ghadir did come up in those debates, and I saw that the Sunni scholar refuted it, and he refuted it with a basic Sunni argument that Mawla means this and this and this, and in this context it means friendship or love or whatever. And I was like, okay, right, that makes sense now. Now Ghadir makes sense with the rest of the Sunnah. It's not like a hadith that's standalone and that conflicts with the rest of the Sunnah. So he kind of reconciled it, and the idea of reconciling made sense to me, because why would the Prophet say, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, so many things and say this one thing that conflicts with everything else, right? It turns out it was my understanding. Who was it? And later on, I got to understand Ghadir even a lot better, and we have videos on our channel if you want to check that out and see in depth how my understanding of Ghadir, how my understanding of the word Mawla according to the ancient Arabs, kind of progressed and evolved. So other than that, when I started getting into this, I wanted to read books, and the first book that I got my hands on was a PDF. I'm a big fan of PDFs. I know it's not good, but I can't afford big books. And so it was a book by somebody called Faisal Noor, who's not a scholar, but he wrote maybe a 600-page book on Imama. And I opened this Arabic book, me as an Arab, and I realized after reading the first couple of pages that it sounded like gibberish to me. I couldn't understand a word. Then I noticed that how weak my Arabic was. But that didn't stop me. So I kept reading and reading and reading and reading. And about page 300 of that book, so halfway through the book, I felt my understanding improve so much. It leapt like from way, earth to sky. And it improved greatly. And it's been improving ever since when I started reading Arabic books, which I don't do as much these days unless I find a really interesting book. But I've been reading since 2008. I've been reading books, and so now whatever pretty much text I read, even some of the complicated ones, depends on how complicated, even philosophical Arabic texts by Kalami schools, I can understand them. It's just a matter of picking up a little bit of the terminologies, some of the wacky terminologies that they have. So that's how my Arabic improved, by just reading Arabic, not by watching Arabic or listening to Arabic, by reading Arabic and just coming across the same word over and over and over in different hadith, and understanding how the Arabs utilized that word and what it meant to them. And so at that point, as part of that whole, campaign to learn about Shiaism and get involved and know what is there to know, I wanted to go to some Shia forums, interact with some Shia that aren't my friends, Shias that I didn't know, because I didn't want to open this kind of thing with my friends at the time. So I went to Shia chats, and I browsed it, and I saw that they were attacking Sahaba, and some of the posts in the Sunni-Shia section, they were attacking Sahaba. So I went in there thinking that I can reconcile, that I can kind of bring these people together. And I started defending the Sahaba. I'm like, no, this is a misunderstanding that you guys have. But the Sahaba, were good, and that what happened was this, this, and this. And so they refuted me. Obviously I was a complete amateur. I didn't know anything. And those guys would just go on, propaganda blogs or websites, copy stuff that I didn't know, post it, and I had no way of checking back because I didn't learn at the time how to research, how to find where it is that I need to find, how to grade a hadith, how to know what is sahih, what is da'if. All of that really matters. And how to critically analyze. I still didn't have that. I was still a part of the gang that believed in, to a great extent, in everything is a Zionist conspiracy. So that happened, and that kind of really, made me upset. And so I had a couple of my friends who were pro-resistance on Facebook, and these guys, they opened another they opened something called Sunni-Shia Global Dialogue, or something like that. I don't know if it's that same page or not, but it was a long time ago. They opened a page like that, and I was religious at the time, and so I was like, all right, let me go and see what this is about, because it's ran by my friends. So I realized right away that this is not a Sunni-Shia global debate. This is just or a Sunni-Shia discussion page. It was a page ran exclusively by Shia in order to convert Sunnis. It was purely propaganda page. And I saw a lot of lay people, Sunnis, get tricked. Back then there was no English refutations to Shiaism online. There was no 12vershia.net. There was no Mahajja. There was no, Sunni defense. None of this existed. So I tried to go there, and I started, debating with the guys, and I even debated with one of my friends there. And then this guy from the subcontinent, Allahu Alam, whether he was Desi, I'm not sure whether he was Bangladeshi, Kashmiri, Pakistani, Indian, I don't know, but he was from the subcontinent, clearly, from his attire, and so he came in, he was a Shia, and he clearly and openly said, in my debate with him, that the Quran was corrupted, that the Quran was muharraf, that the Quran that we have now is not correct, and that the Mahdi will bring the correct Quran. I had no clue. I thought, at that point, I had still thought that this was a Wahhabi conspiracy, that no Shia would believe this. And then I was met with this, and I didn't know what to reply. Like, how would you reply to this? Like, it baffled me. How could a Muslim, believe this? I thought this conflicted with Islam. So what I did was I made takfir on him. I told him, you're a kafir. It's enough. Nothing you say matters anymore. You're a kafir. You're a disbeliever. And what do my Shia friends do, who I've known for a long time, and who I used to support because they're pro-resistance? What do? They ban me. They leave him in the page. So I get banned for telling a person who believes that the Quran is muharraf, that he's a kafir, and he gets to say and propagate tashayya on that page. And that made my blood boil at the time. And I'm like, there's something's not right with these people. Later I found out, actually, some disturbing things, that some of these Shia friends, they had hidden pages with different accounts in which they were attacking Sunnis. In fact, they were attacking Hamas for being Sunnis. And I thought, resistance was united, and they were attacking Hamas because Hamas was Sunni, and that made me so upset that, at that point they didn't know. I think one of the guys was called Ali Rashid or something, but he was in the Lebanese American University. He was a Shia. And that he didn't know what he did, basically, at that point, because what he did by doing that to me is that he motivated a Sunni to go online and literally destroy tashayya, which is what I did over the next couple of years. I pretty much decimated it. And I had a thread on some. There was a Deobandi forum called Sunni Forum. I think it was called Sunni Forum. I had maybe a 200-page thread, just me posting in it, translating everything from English to from Arabic to English, and literally making Shiism look ridiculous, and from the fundamentals to the branches of it, it all was refuted pretty much. And and my username became famous among some of the people online. Oh, Tripoli Sunni. Oh, he refutes Shia. So that's what caused that, really. And that was my first encounter with taqiyya. That's how I was introduced to taqiyya, and that's how I was introduced to because I didn't, when the Wahhabis or the Salafis would say taqiyya, I wouldn't believe them, because I trusted and I believed whatever my Shia friends said. So then I realized the Wahhabis, Salafis are right. They do taqiyya and they do lie. And it was my first interaction with tahrif as well. When Wahhabis and Salafis used to say, oh, tahrif, whatever, I used to say, oh, this is ridiculous. It's no way possible. Then I saw it with my own eyes, and I saw a ton of it afterwards. I saw a ton of it. And now, in their books, I know I can get you at least 50, 60, 70, 80 of a ton of their books in which their scholars talk about tahrif, and yes, that the tahrif does exist. It is a part of their belief. Not all of them believe it. I think by majority today they don't believe it, but it is there. It is a teaching of that madhab. It is a teaching of that school, and it is deeply embedded, and it is okay with a lot of them. Even those who don't believe it are not super critical against those who believe it, and so it wasn't a lie. That school does teach that belief, and we know a few of them today who believe this, and we know a lot of their scholars who believe this. And I thought they were a minority. Later on, my research showed that I think they have like out of their main, how Sunnis have, Bukhari, Muslim, Tirmidhi, Abu Dawud, Nasa'i, Shias also have their main writers of their hadith books, right? And all of them except two believe in tahrif. All of their main hadith writers, author of Al-Kafi, author of Bihar Anwar, author of, all of them believe in tahrif. So that is also found in articles and in some videos on our page. Just to summarize this, because this is getting a bit long now. I don't want it to be this long, to be honest with you, this video. Something else that happened on Shia Chat is I met somebody who would later become my sheikh. I think his username at the time was Lord Bota, and this is Farid, whom you all know from social media. And the reason I say sheikh is that anybody in Islam who literally teaches you, Islamic sciences, technically becomes your sheikh. That's what the tradition is. It's not that he's a sheikh in the sense that he's an old man with a walking stick. He's just, not that much old. He's actually about a year older than me or two. And he taught me hadith science, which was really important and essential. So I kind of specialized in this and read more into Shiism. I started reading their books. And I started realizing all the lies. Now, where did I get into contact with MUT'AH? That's next. So I got married at the time, and my spouse was an ex-Shia. So she was Shia, and she read some of my articles from that Sunni forum. And she at the time herself was not fully convinced about Shiaism, and I think she was engaged actually to a Shia leader. He was a young Shia leader from the United States who moved to another country in the Middle East and formed his movement and all of that. And so I guess she read some of my stuff, and she read some books of theirs, and she told me at the time that she wasn't. She read something called. She read the book of Sulaim bin Qais actually, and she found it ridiculous. And actually, if you read that book, if you're a Sunni, read that book, there's no way you'd convert to Shiaism, even though it's one of their main books. It's complete nonsense, and you can see the extremism, you can see the lies, and you can see the made-up stories, the fabricated stories. They kind of appear really clearly. So some of my stuff kind of helped her out maybe, and we got into contact, and she was writing a book about her experience as an American in the Middle East and all that. And so one chapter was about Shiaism, and I helped her out with that. And I had to, I asked her, after we got married, I asked her about, her experience as a Shia and all of that. And she told me, I was curious about, the MUT'AH, because she had mentioned the MUT'AH once, that these people used to do MUT'AH, and that that young Shia leader was doing MUT'AH with a couple of girls, and at the same time in that group. So they had a group, and God knows where they were getting their funding from, but they rented some places, they rented maybe some apartments. It was more of a cult that they're trying to spread Shiaism in a Sunni country. And they brought some converts to Shiaism even from the West back to the Middle East. And so the guy would bring two girls to his room and be like, oh, you two are my favorite out of everybody else in this group, blah, 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 yada, yada, yada. And everybody would be okay with it, like they're doing MUT'AH. I don't know what's... I mean, I'm sure they're jealous on the inside, but I don't know. So when I had previously asked some of my Shia friends about it, they was like, no, nobody does MUT'AH. But yeah, I mean, now I know for a fact that MUT'AH is rampant, like rampant. It's being done at a high rate, among all of them. It's widespread among their youth, even among some of the older generation. And they believe it's a solution to social, issues. It's a big cause of social problems, actually. And that's why they're ashamed of it. I mean, it's not even socially acceptable to announce it publicly, so they're quite ashamed of it. They wouldn't publicize. So that was kind of my... I mean, still at that point I had Shia friends, and that I believed were not lying, that I believed were honest. One of my friends, she from Facebook, she was Lebanese, and she was actually, I think she was the teacher of one of Hassan Nasrallah's kids. I think she was his French teacher, and she would show me that I think one of her scholars or one of her uncles was a moderate Shia, and he showed her that, look, Sahaba are actually not all evil and they're good, and they didn't hate Ali and all of that. And she told me that in confidentiality. Another Iranian girl I met at school, I asked her about Islam in Iran. She was the only Iranian there, so I found a good opportunity to ask an Iranian who lives in Iran, and was at the UAE at that point, what's it like over there? And she took me in secret, please don't tell anybody I am Sunni. And I got weirded out, like, why is she scared of saying that she's Sunni? The last name was what? Something with the word Pur at the end. Hassanpur. I think it was Hassanpur, the last name. So she's like, please don't tell anybody that I'm Sunni. And so, as you can see, I'm learning all these things. I'm being exposed to how much of a corrupt, ungodly madhab this is. And that would further motivate me. And I'm just, mentioning some of the stories, but there's a lot of stories and a lot of things that happened that led me to adopt this stance that Shiaism is bad, and I actually have to tell people. I have to warn people about it. And I have to expose whatever is bad about it, and show that it's just fake. The whole thing is political, ran by political parties since its inception, since the early days. It's just a political group of people utilizing the lineage of the Prophet to profit politically from it, and expand their influence and expand their area and of power, and gain khums and money and all of that stuff. We went from forum to forum until we finally opened our own forum, which was 12vershia.net, forum.12vershia.net, and we were really active. Recently, we even moved from that platform to YouTube, and we did a lot more YouTube afterwards. And nowadays, I'm not even that super interested in Shiaism. It's been quite a while. I've been doing this since 2008. And I lost interest when I read about it way too much and realized how clearly fake it is and how baseless it is and how the evidence is so flimsy. It's ridiculously flimsy, and that they're just stubborn and they just want to believe it for the sake of believing it. And so, you can't help somebody who's just going to be stubborn. So I wrote the articles. I finished what I finished. It's really quite clear what the case is. Obviously, there's a lot more to be written. There's a lot more to be written to even further disprove it. But what is written is really enough for anybody. Like, nobody who converts to anything has to read 20 volumes of encyclopedias to convert. People convert when Allah opens their heart towards something and they learn the truth. And sometimes it's the most, like in the story of Isa alayhi salam and Maryam alayhi salam. God said that they used to eat. And that was like a subtle evidence that he's not God or a son of God. That was subtle evidence for anybody who's really willing to think. So in Shiaism, there's plenty more evidence. Like, he married his daughter to Umar, and he advised Umar, and he called his kids Umar, and then his kids called their kids Umar. And there's like a ton of evidence. And he appointed Umar's son as the governor of Syria, and he praised Umar in a lot of ahadith, and he was Umar's advisor, and he mourned Umar when Umar died. There's like stacks and stacks of evidence, against Shiaism. So at this point, I really thought it became a waste of my time, and I should move on to something else in my life. But I will still, inshallah, we still do occasionally certain things. A lot of the other members, younger members especially, are active, and I think they should continue what we started, inshallah. And I hope this was useful. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.